Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Michael. You're watching IDB, and Apple has just released iOS 26 to everyone. So you can go ahead and update your iPhone right now and put iOS 26 on it. In this video, I'm going to go over all of the major updates in iOS 26, like the ones that you'll actually care about and want to use every single day. Let's go ahead, roll the intro, and jump right in. Okay, first up, Apple is implementing a pretty big redesign with iOS 26, and they are calling it Liquid Glass. And this redesign spans across all of their platforms. So whether you're using the watch or the iPad or the Mac, with all the updates released today, you're going to see this new Liquid Glass design. So the design can kind of be broken into two parts, liquid and glass. So everything is going to be kind of more fluid and the transitions are going to look really smooth, almost like liquid. And then the glass part is everything on your iPhone's display now is going to have more transparency and it's going to kind of reflect and refract light, sort of like it's a glass element on top. And Apple does a pretty good job at making it look like it's actual glass reflecting the light. So I'll give you a few different examples. The first thing is that the icons are all redesigned. Now, I'm not going to go over every single new icon that Apple has updated, but when you're looking at the icons, the first thing you'll notice is that there is sort of a glass reflection around the edge of the icon. Before in iOS 18, they were just flat icons, but now the icons kind of reflect light. And as you move your iPhone around, it's going to kind of mimic like your iPhone icons are shimmering in the light around you. And this is a pretty cool look. On top of the icons reflecting light, you'll see all the icons have actually been redesigned. One of my favorite ones is the new camera icon. It kind of reminds me of the original iPhone's camera icon. Another one I really like is music. It kind of has a nice frosty music icon. And every icon you use on your iPhone with iOS 26 is going to have a new look. And I think it just kind of adds that fresh feeling that the iPhone was really missing for a long time. So I'm a big fan of these new icons. Okay, the next part of Liquid Glass is transparency. We can see this especially in Control Center. You can see this is the new redesigned Control Center with Liquid Glass. But you can see it's kind of blurring what's in the background. And also, if we go into music, for example, as I scroll, you can see the transparent window at the bottom, or the transparent tab at the bottom, is kind of showing the elements behind it. A lot of people are saying that this is sort of distracting when you're scrolling, but I think it kind of gives a new sense of vitality and layering to the iPhone, and I think it looks really good. Another part of the Liquid Glass update is some of the animations are just a little bit more fun. So I'll give you a few examples. If you swipe down into Control Center and you keep pulling, you can see that the controls kind of stretch out and they bounce back in sort of a fun, playful way. Also, when you unlock your iPhone, if you give it a very dramatic swipe up, the icons are going to really bounce in and really bounce back. Again, just kind of adding to that playful feel. And then here's another really small one, which I think really showcases Apple's attention to detail. But if you go into the Photos app, you'll see we have these two icons at the top right, the filter button and the select button. If you grab this button without clicking on it, you can kind of move it around and you can see it's kind of morphing like glass. And as it moves down and up, it's refracting the light of the element that's behind it. And then if I go a little bit to the left, you can see just like liquid, it's actually going to connect to that other element. And if I go farther away, it's going to disconnect. So the attention to detail here with the way that you can alter the controls and just move them around is unparalleled, and we've never seen a design like this. Another aspect of Liquid Glass that I think is really important is the elimination of tab bars. So with iOS 18 and every version behind that, Apple always had in a lot of their apps a tab bar at the bottom that was attached to the bottom of the app no matter what you did. Think the music app. The buttons never really moved or changed. Now in the music app in iOS 26, it's now a floating tab bar. And as you scroll, it gets smaller. And as you scroll and get to the top of your list, it gets bigger and shows you more information. So it just kind of gives you a little bit more room to breathe when you're scrolling. But then when you want to see the controls and get to the top of the screen, they get bigger again. So I just think it makes a lot more sense. And I think on iPhones that are full screen like this, it makes more sense to have these floating tab bars, because I think those tab bars that were attached to the bottom of the screen were sort of built for the old iPhones with home buttons. So I think this is definitely a better step forward. Another aspect of the iOS 26 redesign that I think you're really going to enjoy is the new clear icon look. And this will also work on widgets as well. So on your home screen, press and hold, and then click on Edit, and then press on Customize. And now here you can see there's an all new option called Clear. You can change this to clear and either have dark mode or light mode or auto. And this looks really good with Liquid Glass. I don't really use it that much because I kind of differentiate my apps based on what color they are. So this kind of drove me crazy when I started using it. But I think it definitely makes your iPhone look a lot more clean. And if you want to try out this new clear app look, it's here. Just keep in mind it's going to be harder to find your apps. And then the final redesign in terms of Liquid Glass and iOS 26 is we have a new keyboard design. So you'll notice that the buttons have a slightly different shape, and now the keyboard is actually rounded at the top corners. So a little bit of an update. I think it looks a little bit nicer. I went back to using an iPhone with iOS 18, and for some reason the keyboard just felt outdated. So with this new update, we have a nice fresh look on the keyboard. All right, next up is Messages. We have a few nice updates inside of Messages for iOS 26. The first one is you can now have backgrounds on some of your conversations. Some people are going to love this and some people are going to absolutely hate this. But all you have to do is click on the person's name. And then you can see here, we have a few different options. You can choose backgrounds. And here we can now pick a background for our conversation with this person. So I'll just go ahead and choose this one. I think this looks pretty nice. Then I can click on the confirm button on the top right. And now my conversation here is now changed to a nice, colorful, playful background. So I think this is kind of going after WhatsApp. They've had backgrounds for conversations for so long. I think a lot of people are going to find this quite fun. And like I said, some people are going to absolutely hate this. But if you want to spruce up some of your messages with a fun background, you can now do it in iOS 26. We also have some great updates for group chats in Messages as well. The first one is now polls. So if you are trying to decide where to go for dinner, for example, in a group chat, you can now click on the plus button. Then you can see there's a new option here called polls. You can click on it. It by default gives you 3 choices, but you can obviously add more. And then as people vote in the group chat, you're going to see those results come in live. Also, what's really cool about these polls is if somebody else texts something and recommends it, AI in the phone can actually automatically add that option to the poll, and then people can start voting on it. So it's a pretty cool option. I think making decisions inside of Messages is going to be a lot easier with the new polls feature. And then also for Messages, we finally have typing indicators for group chats. Before, this was reserved for one-on-one texting conversations, but now, no matter what the size of the group chat is, if someone is typing, you'll finally be able to see their typing indicator in the group chat, which is awesome. Then on top of that, for customers in the United States, you can now send Apple Cash inside of group chats, not just one-on-one. For me, I'm in Canada. I can't use Apple Cash. I've never had the Apple Card or Apple Cash. Wish I could try it, but I can't. But if you're in the US, you can now send Apple Cash in a group chat, which is awesome. And the Messages app also has some new filtering options as well. So when you're on the homepage of your Messages, you can see there's this new icon on the top right. It looks like a filter. And if you click on it, you can see we have Messages, Spam, and Recently Deleted. We also have an option to manage filtering. So if we click on this, it's going to take us into our Messages settings. And you can see here there's an option that says Screen Unknown Senders. So if you receive a text from someone that's not in your contacts, the message won't actually show up in your main screen. Instead, it'll go into spam or potential spam. So that way, any text you get on your iPhone, if you have that turned on, you know it's going to be an important text message that you're seeing. We also have a few really cool updates inside of Phone. The first thing you'll notice is when you open Phone, we now have a new unified layout. So all of your favorites are now at the top, and then you have all of your recent calls below it. You can go back to the old layout if you want to click on the button on the top right and then go back to classic. This is the way that your phone app used to be, but I really like the new unified layout, so I definitely recommend trying this one out because it looks so much better. Also, when Apple was announcing iOS 26, they mentioned that the AI in the phone app is going to be able to detect important voicemails and bring them to the top of your unified layout. So if you've missed a bunch of calls or placed a bunch of calls and the voicemail gets dropped down the list, apparently the AI in the phone will be able to bring that back to the top of the list so you won't miss it. And then the final 2 features in the phone app are by far my favorite. The first one is call screening. So the iPhone finally has call screening just like those Google Pixel phones have had for a while. If we go into our phone settings, you can see we have 3 different options for screen unknown callers. We have never, so every phone number is going to go through. We have ask reason for calling. So pretty much AI is going to answer the phone for you and say, why are you calling? And then you'll be able to read that in text on your screen, and whatever the person is saying, if you approve for the reason that they're calling, you can click one button and then be connected to that call. Also, we can completely silence calls. So if you get a call from an unknown number, if they're not in your contacts, you can completely silence the call. It'll just go right to voicemail. I think the most popular one is going to be ask reason for calling. So you don't know who's calling. You can see a quick transcript on your iPhone of what they're saying, where they're from, why they're calling, and then with one click, you can be connected to them. And then when you're on a phone call, there are some really cool features that I want to talk about. The first one is hold assist. So the iPhone is going to be able to detect when you are put on hold, and a button is automatically going to appear and you can click on hold assist. And it's pretty much going to look like it ends the call on your iPhone, but the call is still going on in the background. And then once the AI detects a person comes on the line, it's going to notify you. You can one click and be back on that phone call. So this is going to make being on hold with a live agent so much better. You no longer have to listen to hold music ever again. And then also new in the phone, this is probably the coolest one, is live translate. So when you're in the phone, all you have to do is click on this more button and you'll see we have live translate. This is going to make it really awesome for speaking with someone in another country. It also works on FaceTime as well, which is really awesome. It does it pretty quickly from my testing. It's not the most accurate. I think it's still in beta, at least it should be, but it's kind of cool that now your iPhone can translate live what someone is saying on an ongoing phone call. All right, so now let's talk about camera and photos. Let's start with camera. So camera has an all new design, and I love this because the camera app was getting so convoluted before, but now in iOS 26 it actually makes sense. So when you open up the camera, you see photo and video. That's literally it. You don't see any of the other options. It's so much better. If you do want to reveal the other options though, you can still swipe just as you were able to before and you can reveal them. But I think when you initially launch the camera, just seeing photo and video is just so much cleaner and doesn't overload you with information. Also, all of your settings are available a lot easier now. So if you do a swipe up from the bottom, you can see it's going to reveal everything that you want to use, such as flash, live photos, timer, exposure, photographic styles, and aspect ratio. And it's also easier to change your formats now inside of Photos. So here you can see I can click on the top left and I can easily change my format. So from high efficiency to RAW, or from 24 megapixels to 48. And it also works for video as well. This works for video in iOS 18, but the way you changed it didn't really work that well. Now we have an actual dedicated UI for changing our resolution, and this is a really nice change. iOS 26 also redesigns the Photos app. I feel like Apple has been tweaking the Photos app for a very long time. It just seems like they can't decide on what design they want to go with, but I think they've nailed it here in iOS 26, and I'll tell you why. So first up, when you open up Photos, the first thing you see is your library. Thank God. So you don't have to deal with the mess of iOS 18. It just opens up to your library. And then if you want to see everything else in your library, you can click on Collections. This is where you'll see your albums, your memories, your featured photos, your different utilities. Everything that you want in your Photos app is here and is separated by two different tabs. I think this is the way it should have been from the beginning, and it makes navigating your photos and finding a specific photo so much easier. Also, Apple has added the search button to the bottom right. Finally, before in iOS 18, the search button was very tiny and it was on the top right of the phone and it was so hard to use. But here in iOS 26, we can tap on search with our thumb and it's so much easier to search for any photo in iOS 26. All right, now let's talk about the updates to the lock screen. We have a few pretty nice ones. So first up is we can now make the clock as big as we want. So if we press and hold on the lock screen and then click on Customize, you can see for the clock we now have a grabber and we can make this as big as we possibly could ever dream of. So this is nice and it makes the time a little bit easier to see. Also, if you have a photo shuffle wallpaper, the size of the clock can actually dynamically adjust to whatever your wallpaper is. So you can see here as I'm changing my wallpaper, the size of the clock is also changing as well. This is a pretty cool change. And iOS 26 also introduces spatial wallpapers. This is really cool. So you can set any photo as your wallpaper, and if you press and hold on the lock screen, you'll see we have a new option here, and this is gonna let you have a spatial scene on that photo. And as you move your phone around, it's gonna look like the subject is popping off the display. This is really, really cool, and it just kind of makes your iPhone feel like it has a hologram wallpaper. You have to try it in person because it's a pretty damn cool wallpaper option. Also, it'll work not just as a wallpaper, but inside the Photos app as well. So for literally any photo on your iPhone, you'll see we have a new option here. The button is on the top right. And if you click it, it's gonna turn that photo into a spatial scene. And just like you could on your wallpaper, you can move your iPhone around and it looks like there's a hologram on your iPhone right from within the Photos app. This was obviously inspired by the Vision Pro. Apple gets a lot of depth information from the multiple cameras on your iPhone, and this is really, really cool to see. easy. And the final update to iOS 26 on the lock screen is when you're playing music, if you tap on the album art on your lock screen, it's going to completely fill the display in a really nice, cool new UI. So that's going to cover all the major updates for individual apps in iOS 26. But now I want to go over some of the miscellaneous updates in iOS 26 because some of these are pretty freaking cool. The first one is inside of music, and this is called Auto Mix. Essentially, this is like a DJ on your iPhone. You know when you're just playing songs like in your car and the song ends and it was a really fast-paced song and you're really going fast and now it's a slow-paced song and now it's like the transition between the songs kind of sucked is what I'm trying to say. Apple is trying to eliminate that problem with what they call auto mix. So inside of music, if you press on the Q button on the bottom, you'll see there's a new option here and it kind of looks like two circles together. If you press this, it's going to turn auto mix on. So auto mix is going to use beat matching, and it's also going to slow down or speed up the pace of the song you're listening to better transition from one song to the next. So if you're going from a slower song to a faster song, you might notice at the end, like the last 10 seconds of that song, the beat might start to get artificially faster because it's going to slowly transition into that faster paced song. It's kind of hard to explain, and I wish I could demo it on YouTube without getting a copyright strike, but this is one of those really cool features that only Apple could have done, and you just have to try it out for yourself to fully understand how it works. There's also a new tab inside of the Maps application. So if you press on your profile icon, then tap on Places, you'll see we have a new beta feature called Visited Places. And if you press on this, it's going to give you some of the places that you have visited. So you can see by category, by city, or all visits, and it's kind of giving you a history of where you've been. And this is kind of a nice way to kind of see where you've been with Apple Maps and maybe navigate back to a place you've been before. There's also an all-new application in iOS 26 called Games. So the last time Apple had a dedicated Games app was way back, I think, in like iOS 10 for Game Center. This is essentially Game Center, it's just called something different. So you can see we have a Home tab, Arcade, Friends, and Library. For me, it's absolutely useless. I do not game on my iPhone, but if you are a hardcore iPhone gamer, I could see how you would like this. It's kind of a unified hub for all of your games. So you can see all of your friends, you can see all the games you have installed, you can see games that are from Apple Arcade. I think this is gonna be nice, like I said, if you love to game on your iPhone. Apple has also redesigned boarding passes inside of the Wallet app in iOS 26. Now this will be a little bit harder for me to show you because I don't have a boarding pass on my iPhone. But essentially, traveling is going to get a lot better with iOS 26 because when you have a boarding pass inside of Wallet, it'll be able to show you a map of the airport. It'll allow you to choose AirTag items that you can sync up with your trip. So you can pretty much track your luggage in conjunction with that trip and that boarding pass. And you can also share your flight status right from within the boarding pass as well. So Apple is making the traveling experience, especially with flying and airports, a lot better inside of the Wallet app. Apple is also allowing us to start a video recording when we are wearing AirPods. So if we have our AirPods in, all we have to do is press and hold on the stem and it will automatically start recording a video on your iPhone if you have the camera app open and set to video. Apple is also allowing us to change our snooze duration in the clock. Finally, so we can set it from anywhere, I think from 1 minute all the way up to 15 minutes. You can now snooze as short or as long as you want inside the clock app. We're no longer stuck to a 9-minute snooze. And then we also have a new option inside of battery settings. We actually have an all new power mode. So here inside of settings, if we click on battery and then power mode, you can see an all new option aside from low power mode is adaptive power. So this is going to allow your iPhone to dynamically adjust how much power the CPU is using. I think this was specifically made for the iPhone Air because I think that iPhone isn't going to have a very good battery life, but you can turn this on for any iPhone running iOS 26, and you can also turn on adaptive power notifications. I've actually noticed my phone has been using adaptive power even when the battery was at like 70%. I think I was out in the backyard and the sun was beaming on the screen and it was really hot. So that's when it turned on adaptive power. So if you want to extend the battery life in your iPhone, especially if you have an older iPhone, I think adaptive power is going to be something you should definitely try out. And the second to last feature I want to show you is when you're charging your phone can now tell you exactly how much time until it's charged. Well, kind of. So it can tell you how much time until 80%. It just won't tell you the time until it's fully charged, which Kind of feels like a half feature if you have to ask me, but whatever. We can now finally get sort of an estimated charge time for your iPhone. And then the final update for iOS 26 that I'll mention is we now have visual intelligence on screenshots. So visual intelligence is available on the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 16 models, I believe. When you press and hold on the camera button, it launches visual intelligence, but now we have visual intelligence in screenshots as well. So when we take a screenshot, we're gonna see any visual intelligence recommendations at the bottom of our screen. So there we have it. That's everything new in iOS 26. Let me know what your favorite feature is, and also let me know what you think of Liquid Glass by commenting down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please drop a like. It really helps us out quite a bit. My name is Michael with IDB, and I'll see you in the next video.